Hey everybody, welcome back to American History with Mr. Finn. Today we are wrapping up World War One because we have a lot more to do moving forward, and World War One, unfortunately for the people of the time, did not end up being the war to end all wars, which was kind of the idea of World War One. This is it. This is the biggest war of all time. We will have no more wars. This is the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, it's not. So, some of the things that lead to the post-war time period is going to be starting with the 14 points. So I'm going to do a lot more talking than I am going to do note-taking, but having these definitions today is going to be what you turn into me today. So let's just get through it because I'm going to explain them. So getting right into it. The 14 points was brought to a peace conference by our president, President Wilson. So we can even say Wilson's 14 points. And what these 14 points are 14 ideas or things, strategies, strategies to stop war from happening again. So that's what the 14 points are. So that's as simple as that definition needs to be. So just understand this. President Wilson comes to this peace conference and says, listen, I have this idea. It's called my 14 points. These are strategies we can use to stop war from happening again. We are not going through every single one of the 14 points, but we will hit on some of the main ones. Namely, we're looking at self-determination. Well, there's a couple things, and that's why I'll just say them. So one of the main causes of World War I were those secret alliances, if you remember. Hey, you attack me, but then all of a sudden someone comes out and attacks you, and someone attacks me, and then all of a sudden we're all at war. So one of those points was to put an end to secret alliances. Another one was to reduce armaments, meaning like every country should lessen the amount of weapons that they are building. I think there was another one that they talk about. Freedom of the seas, because again, remember the U-boats by Germany had been sinking these ships and trying to put a blockade. So if we can keep the seas free, we don't have secret alliances. And we reduce the amount of weapons we are producing, each country does. Those are kind of main points of these 14 points. Another one was self-determination, meaning that, and let me give you the best one, which is that people, let me just put it here, people can determine their government, basically, understanding. So if the people of one area want to have this is our own area, we should be able to have our own country. We should not be dominated or controlled by another country. That is what self-determination means. So the people of an area can determine their own government. The reason for this, if you remember, early on, the question of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he was assassinated when he was visiting Sarajevo, and that was a place where Serbs were, and they were like, we want our own country, and you're making us be a part of your country. This is not cool. Self-determination would mean that those people who live in an area say, listen, all of the people here are one group. We want our own government. We don't want to be dominated by this, basically what we consider a foreign government. And that is self-determination, which is part of that. The League of Nations is another one. The League of Nations is actually, you know what I can do since we have a video, is it's a YouTube video, I can take these notes off as we go. Give me more room. So the League of Nations, we already have Wilson's 14 points. Make sure you have them down, because these are what you're turning in. Now I have more room to write about the League of Nations. I can go up with the League of Nations. League of Nations is going to be countries join in what we'll just consider a peacekeeping organization. All right, that is the League of Nations. Countries will join together in an organization that is designed to keep the peace between countries. If I have a problem with you, we can take it up at the League of Nations. The League of Nations can try to mediate or make sure that we don't start fighting or figure out who's right, who's wrong, what's going on. And this way, we all come together and we don't just join sides and start fighting. So all of these ideas sound great on paper, but again, here's the problem if we look at something like the League of Nations. One, there's two problems with it. One, the League of Nations, does it have any military? Is there any power behind it? Or is it just a group of people saying, like, maybe we shouldn't fight? There's not, it doesn't ensure that countries will not go to war with one another. It's just an idea where maybe this could work. On top of that, I might as well get to this now. This peacekeeping organization, League of Nations, was part of Wilson's 14 points. Who is the American president? The problem is, guess who does not get the League of Nations approved by its government? That's right. The USA is not a part of the League of Nations. So, Wilson's like, yo, we got to be part of this League of Nations. It's part of my ideas, my plans as the President of the United States. And the Congress here in the United States says, wait a second, we don't want to lose our, independentness. We don't want to be tied to this League of Nations. We want to be able to make our own decisions. We don't want to, lose anything. And so we will not vote to be part of it. So the League of Nations moves forward, but the country whose president came up with it is not a part of the League of Nations. And at this time, we're in the 19 teens, about to be the 1920s. The United States had established itself as a world power at this time, and it's just going to continue to grow into a role of a world power. So without the United States being a part of the League of Nations, a country which will be on the path to being the most powerful country in the world, the League of Nations will not work. It will eventually fail because it doesn't have, the backing of the United States of America. Again, which is funny considering our country came up with the idea for the League of Nations. But probably the most damaging thing in these peace talks is going to be reparations. Reparations are going to be demanded. So what are reparations? First, let me put the definition. Let me get down here. It is payment for wrong doing. Payment for wrongdoing. What does that mean? Means money, money, money. So, reparations is someone does something wrong. You are guilty of something. You must pay money. And those would be considered reparations. And who had done something wrong? Well, who were the winners in this war? Well, the United States were, France was, England was. Who wasn't? Germany wasn't. And so all of these people, considering Germany was doing a lot of the fighting on both fronts, really want to take it out on Germany. And so these payments for wrongdoing, who had done the wrongdoing? Germany had. And so who's going to have to pay a lot of money? Germany's going to have to. It amounted to something like 33 billion. So keep this in mind too. 33 billion is a lot today. 33 billion in 1919 is crazy. It's like, it is a huge sum of money to demand to a country. So especially, here's the thing. You come out of war, you're already in a bad spot. You're already, you lost the war, Germany. Germany's in a bad spot. Its economy had pretty much gone into the tank. and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you now have to pay other countries payments every year up to the amount of $33 billion all once it's all done. And so what is going to happen? And this is the reparations. These reparations are huge for us, have huge consequences. Because think about this. If you know anything about the world wars, we had World War I, but we also have World War II. In World War II, we are going to see the rise of dictators such as Adolf Hitler. Hitler is in Germany. Why and how is someone so crazy allowed to come into power? Well, reparations. Because Germany is going to go into have hyperinflation. No one knows about economic real theory of the day. And so what happens is Germany does something that you would probably do. Germany says 33 billion. Might as well give you a little preview here. Germany starts to print money. Right? Makes sense. Hey, we owe money. We're the government. Let's make more money, and then we have more money. I give you a plate, a template that is a $100 bill, and I say all you got to do is press a lever. Boop. Now you have $100. Oh, now you have $200. Oh, now you have $300. Germany's like, that's what we'll do. The problem is when you do this and you print money, you now have more money that's out there. So follow me on this one. Germany prints money, meaning that there is more money out there. Now this is going to get a little economic-y for you, but it's a very simple economic process. This would be very simple. If there's more of something, is it more expensive or less expensive? For example, gold. Is there a ton of gold out there, or is there a little bit of gold out there? Or a finite amount is what they say. There's only, compared to other things, let's just take gold. You might say, yeah, there's lots of gold. I can go to a jewelry store and this and that. Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of gold in the world, but compare that to, I don't know, a foam finger when you go to a football game. I want my number one foam finger that I can put on. Can you make millions of foam fingers? Yeah. Are foam fingers worth the same amount as gold? No. Why are foam fingers so much less expensive? Because you can just make a bunch of them. There's way more of them out there. And so as the more and more stuff out there, if you see there's more money out there now, what does that mean to the value of that money? It means the value goes down, drops. To the point that their money becomes basically worthless. And the economy just tanks. Germany does this, it's called hyperinflation, where prices go way up. We'll explain that when we get to it. It has to do with this, the idea that we print a lot of money, so its value drops. So if I say now I want to buy a loaf of bread, it's not $4 anymore, because that $4 is not as valuable as it once was. It's now $100 because there's so much money out there. And what that does is just throw Germany into a terrible state, which again, preview allows someone like Adolf Hitler to come into power by blaming other people. And so, to finish us off today, what we are going to see the official end of this war is going to be the Versailles Treaty. The Versailles Treaty ends World War I. Because they agree on some of these things. But again, the 14 points, the reparations, the peace treaty that they make, this Versailles Treaty with all of those things involved, is not very effective. They think they have done something to end all wars, but nobody's really happy with the results of this treaty. So it wasn't as if everyone agreed and said, all right, we all agree that this is going to be the way it is. It's like the USA is not in the League of Nations. Germany's getting blasted with reparations. the United States isn't happy, England and France aren't happy. All of this happening at the same time as, by the way, this is something that is really important to us as we move forward, Russia's civil war, and to end, this is really to end it because this is going to take us into the future. If you remember, we looked at this revolution, the civil war that was happening in Russia was led by Lenin. And the United States and England and France and everyone who was around, all the countries around during this time period, get in on the side fighting against Lenin. So it is important to understand that the U.S., England, France don't like Lenin. And so this is going to be a bad precursor to what happens for the next 80 years. It takes us really to the end of the class, and that is the fact that Lenin is going to eventually come out on top of this war. Russia is going to, I'm going to go arrow from Russia, become communist. It's going to become a communist country. Communism is already at ends with capitalism, which we'll look at again. It's already the opposite of what we think. On top of that, Lenin's like, yo, I don't like any of you guys anyway, because you all joined and tried to fight against me, or gave help to the side that was fighting me. I end up winning as Lenin and the communists. Russia becomes communist, and now it's like they cannot get along. So we are about to look at we got to look at the period of the 20s. But 10 years after this, once we get into the 30s, we will start to see the rise of dictators in these countries because the problems were not solved at the end of World War I. So again, a lot of talking today. A lot of definitions and notes. Go ahead and turn those notes into me today for participation and attendance purposes. And on that note, I will see you next class.